excited when you talk to him?
Well, he's genuinely excited. There's nobody happier for our success because it's his success.
Do you foresee him being active as a backup next week?
I do. He's ready.
He's ready to go?
He's ready.
Oh, Jerry. He says Tony Romo will be the backup next week. And before the game, Adam Schefter predicted that 2016 likely will be Romo's last season with the Cowboys. Schefter has listed the Bears, Jets, and Broncos as potential fits. If Romo isn't with the Cowboys next year, where would you like him to go, Max?
Well, I am a Giants fan.
Really?
Which means in New York, people don't get this. If you're a Giants fan, you have to hate the Jets. You know, you like both. No. If you're a Yankees fan, you have to hate the Mets. And now that the Nets are playing in Brooklyn, I suppose if you're a Knicks fan, you have to hate the Nets. The Nets were really never thought much of in the New York area. So I'm anti-Jet.
Okay.
So I want to see Romo go to the Jets. Not because Romo's not a fantastic quarterback when he's healthy, not because the Jets couldn't use him. On paper, it works out, and they could be a very good team. The problem is Romo will never be healthy for a whole season. That's not going to happen. And it's no news that this is going to be the last, Adam Schefter breaks great news all the time. But this is not news to people following the situation in the sense that $54 million cap hit means you cannot trade him this season. It also means if you can cut him at the end of the season, I think June 1st, you cut him and you save $54 million over 3 years and you have a quarterback, that means he will certainly be cut after this season. So he's their backup, which is a great safety plan for the Cowboys this year. And then he's heading somewhere else. And I hope it's to a team like the Jets because it will undermine their fortunes in the long run because given his back condition and the fact that he can't make it through a full season, if you game plan your season around him, you will be disappointed due to his health, not his talent.
Well, I'm known as the Cowboy hater per se. I mean, it's really not them.
No.
It's really not them. It's their fan base, which I think is the most despicable, disgusting, nauseating fan base in American history. I can't stand them. It's not so much the Cowboys, it's their fans. But I will say this. With that in mind, Max Kellerman, I'm going to say that you're being quite cruel to Tony Romo. And I would dare say I don't think Tony Romo deserves that. I mean, after all, in New York City, what do you have? You have a franchise that has been moribund for quite some time. Todd Bowles tried to get them steered in the right direction. Last year was a decent season before they collapsed in that last game against Buffalo. And then they come back this year and they wet the bed and they're undisciplined. And now, you know, the coach could potentially be in a hot seat going into next season because of the lack of discipline and focus they've displayed this year in New York. I don't wish that on a 36-year-old Tony Romo that's had about 3 or 4 back injuries over the last several years. A matter of fact, I want Cowboy Nation to know that I'm thinking about Tony Romo and his future health and and what's beneficial to him in his life. His lovely wife, his new family, you know, all of that other stuff. I want to be thoughtful towards Tony Romo. So rather than wish the Jets upon him, I would say the Denver Broncos. Because last time I checked, Demaryius Thomas ain't going nowhere. Emmanuel Sanders ain't going nowhere. C.J. Anderson had an opportunity to go to Miami, but John Elway matched that off and kept him in Denver. Okay, the offensive line is anticipated to be better. Kubiak is a Super Bowl champion coach. John Elway is a Super Bowl champion executive and former quarterback. And by the way, an executive that has experience picking a quarterback with back injuries from the past and ultimately doing what you can to protect him, to ultimately elevate him to the Super Bowl stratosphere. There is a history there, a record there, where John Elway and the Denver Broncos have been proven to be a beneficial landing spot for a guy, which is why I would wish such a thoughtful thing on Tony Romo. And you, Mac, you should be ashamed of yourself for throwing Tony Romo to the wolves that are in New York. I don't say that Tony Romo deserves that.
Let me tell you why. Because the Jets are an accident waiting to happen. Steve, I don't know if you ever heard that expression before.
Yesterday was rough.
Look, no, it's nothing against Romo. Romo on the Jets, he would make them an excellent team while he was healthy. He wouldn't stay healthy. On the Broncos, if Tony Romo could somehow just get healthy for the postseason, for the playoffs, the Broncos would win the Super Bowl with him. If you put a quarterback of that quality on that team's going to win the Super Bowl. But what are the odds? He's going to have to get healthy just in time for the playoffs, and in the meantime, Simeon or whoever else is going to have to get them there. He can't stay healthy. Why is this so alien to people? It's obvious. He has a degenerative back condition. It's not going to get any better. When he's on the field, he is excellent.
Well,
Can't stay on
the
field.
Jets are too busy trying to find a quarterback, whether it's Ryan Fitzpatrick, whether it's Bryce Petty or whomever. They're too busy trying to find Geno Smith when he comes back from his injury, even though he'll probably be gone. These are the kind of things that you're stuck with. Whereas in Denver, Trevor Siemian has done enough. Where if Tony Romo was there and he was a backup, you'd still be in a good situation if you're the Denver Broncos. So you can afford to have cover for Tony Romo in the event that he goes down. But if he's able to stay up, his experience, even though he's only got 2 playoff victories in his career, which is nothing to brag about, as we all know. Some people have elocuted that on this very show. I will say no names. My point to you is that it's a better situation for him in Denver than it is here, and that is the situation.
All right, let's talk a little college football on that note. Alabama is cruising while the other top teams in college football are faltering. So the question is, does it matter who the 3 teams are in the playoff, or are the Tide a lock for the title? Find out that next.
And now today, they have decided that they are going to
just look at those two. Happy.
And also knocked from the ranks of the unbeaten when Iowa's Keith Duncan hit a 33-yard field goal as time expired. Clemson was upset by Pitt when Chris Blewett hit the game-winning 48-yard field goal with 6 seconds left. And Alabama was the only team in the top 4 to survive, blowing out Mississippi 51-3. Now, because of the wild day, there was a major shakeup in the AP poll here, folks. Alabama remains at number 1, followed by Ohio State, Louisville, Michigan, and Clemson in the top 5. So, Stephen A., the question is, does it matter who the other 3 teams are in the college football playoff when it's unveiled tomorrow night, or is it all about your Roll Tide, baby?
Well, absolutely. Roll Tide. I mean, it ain't about nothing to me. I said at the beginning of the season that Alabama will run the table, and I meant it. One of my boys, a couple of people. First of all, you got people calling up to my radio show, Sirius XM, Mad Dog Sports Radio, every weekday from 1 to 3 p.m. every day, Channel 82. You got people calling up to my radio show. Got one of my boys.
What channel?
Channel 82.
82.
Mad Dog Sports Radio.
What time?
1 to 3 p.m.
I can hear Stephen A. Smith 1 to 3 p.m. on Mad Dog Radio, Channel 82 every day?
Every day.
Just
every day. Eastern Standard Time. My boy Champ is another dude that calls up all the time to rave about how somebody's going to knock off Alabama. He ain't been right yet this year, okay? You know, he talked about Tennessee, talked about Texas A&M. He thought, don't shout him out. He doesn't deserve, Champ doesn't deserve to be shouted out because he's been wrong on college football, even though he's usually right about a lot of other things, because I got love for him. But here's the deal. The reality of the situation is clear. It's about Roll Tide, baby. It's them and everybody else. I tried to educate this with Max about this a long, long time ago. Clemson, you know, you lose to Pittsburgh, okay? That's a big-time problem, all right? There's no doubt about that. But my 4 would be Alabama, Clemson, Louisville, because the Louisville almost beat Clemson, and I want to see Lamar Jackson, and then the winner eventually of that season finale between Ohio State and Michigan. Washington, I was raving about them for the last few weeks, saying they deserve to be in the top 4. What I didn't know is that they would get punked on their own home turf by USC. They didn't just lose. They lost. They got beat up. USC beat them fair and square, handily, no last-minute heroics, histrionics, anything. They took them out. And so when I look at that, I say to myself, USC, Helton, he's got them going in the right direction. Give love where it's due. Washington is out of the mix. Texas A&M, you can assume, but they lost so lopsidedly to Alabama. I don't know about that, but I'm thinking about Clemson. I'm thinking about Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, and I'm thinking about the winner of Michigan, Ohio State, because Penn State ain't going in there. I don't give a damn that they beat Ohio State. I'm not putting Penn State in there.
Alabama against the field's looking pretty good. You took also the Cubs against the field to give you credit. I always like the field against the best team until the best team is down to playing one other team. When the field becomes one, then the best team should win. We're not there yet. Alabama is the Patriots or the Spurs of college football on steroids, because it's a little easier for the most dominant coach in college, I think, to control the quality of the program.
Which is why you should know to agree with me.
However, football's still luck dependent, largely, which is why what Saban's doing is so impressive. Let's get to the 14th. Let's get to the 14th. No, I'm saying that will influence the outcome of a football game more than, say, a basketball game. Okay. Let's get to the 14th. Alabama, obviously. Louisville, yes. And then it can't be Michigan, Ohio State, because they play each other at the end of the year, and the 2-loss team ain't getting in. So the winner of Michigan, Ohio State at the end of the year.
That's what I said.
So who's the 4th team? Look, Washington loses to a red-hot USC team that's very talented, fine. That's a bad loss for them. However, as someone who just lived on the West Coast for 5.5 years, I can tell you, because of the late start, the late Saturday game, media titans like Stephen A. Smith don't get to see those games to the extent that they get to see the East Coast games. There's an East Coast bias baked in that has nothing to do with liking the teams that you're nearer more. It's just you see them more. The clocks are such that you don't see the late games as much. So they get slept on. But part of a playoff system is that, like in the old days, the World Series in baseball, the NL and the AL never play each other. So in the World Series, you actually get to see the two divisions compete. And I think that there's something to that here. Why not? Just because it's a Pac-12 team, let's have one representative from the West Coast, if they win out, of course. If they win out and they wind up with one loss to a talented, storied program, right, that was coming on at the time, I don't think that loss is bad enough to keep the only representative from the Pac-12 out of a playoff system.
Clemson lost on a last-second play to Pittsburgh, even though that's a bad loss because Pittsburgh's got 4 losses on the year. Louisville lost in a thriller to Clemson. All right? Washington got beat up by USC. Beat up. And then when we look at USC's schedule, let's look at this for a second, Max. All right, you got annihilated by Alabama to open the season. You beat Utah State. You lost to Stanford, and you lost to Utah. So the three of your first 4 games were against the number 1, the number 7th, and the number 24th ranked team. Ever since then, the only ranked team you played was Colorado, who you squeezed by 21-17. And then, you run over Washington. To me, that's a bad loss for Washington. That's a more devastating loss for Washington than it was for Clemson or Michigan, all right, or Ohio State or Louisville. And the fact that that is the reality is why my 4 is Alabama, Clemson, Louisville, and the winner of Ohio State, Michigan.
Asking who's better, Washington or Clemson?
No, I'm talking about who I want in the Final
would say
Four.
Clemson's the better team. I'm saying if it comes to splitting hairs, because you're right about that, although a lot of their losses are early, Washington, and that's the nature of football. The team changes identity sort of over the course of a season. I'm just saying if it comes to splitting hairs, let's take a Pac-12 team.
Yeah, but you lose 3 or 4 early. Damn it, that's 3 or 4.
Okay, go to break. How about tonight, fellas? 2 of the game's best receivers face off on Monday Night Football. So is tonight a must-win for Odell Beckham and the Giants against A.J. Green and the Bengals? That discussion next.